Good morning, guys. Dan Wise, Wise Media Studios, over here at the Mode facility, where the Rock School Northwest has their home base. And today we got a special treat. This is you're probably the biggest celebrity I've ever got to interview.
Well,
who are you? Who are you?
Huh?
Who are you?
Well, my name is Greg Douglas. I am sort of a mid-level celebrity, kind of like the guy who cleans Mel Gibson's pool is a celebrity.
He probably is, honestly. The guy that does Mel Gibson's pool probably makes more than me for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm not sure if he's more famous. I have been a very fortunate guitarist. I've played with a lot of people over the years. I played with Van Morrison. I played with Steve Miller. I played with a band called Hot Tuna, which a lot of you hippies out there will remember. Paul Butterfield, the great harmonica player. It goes on and on. I played with a lot of my heroes.
A lot of your heroes?
A lot of my heroes, man. It was great. When I look back on it now, at my age, which is 74, you get a little perspective. And I couldn't have asked for a better life, except for, some missteps I made along the way, which I'll discuss later. But yeah.
And I imagine the rock and roll lifestyle definitely comes with its fair share of, at the time, it's probably fun, but was there a lot of drugs? And when you like what you see on TV, drugs, women, rock and roll, groupies, is that all real?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is to an extent. The problem is first of all, being a touring musician is the only job where you're almost expected to use drugs. That wouldn't go well if you were doing telemarketing at AT&T, for instance. But
you mean attorneys aren't expected to use cocaine?
Absolutely. Attorneys, that's different.
They just don't tell anybody.
That's where I used to get all my coke.
I love it.
So yeah, the problem is it's fun. It's fun when you do it. We would not do it if it wasn't fun.
Right.
We wouldn't drink if it didn't feel good. We wouldn't do cocaine if it didn't pick us up. We wouldn't do heroin if it didn't calm us down and make us feel like we were invulnerable. The problem is when it gets to be too much fun. And you start having too much fun and everything suffers. Life is all about balance, which only took me till I was in my 60s to finally learn that simple fact.
Like the work-life balance.
Yes, absolutely. Something's going to suffer if one thing gets out of control.
Right.
If I start doing too many drugs, my work is going to suffer. And I've lost a lot of great gigs because of it. But I've come to terms with it. I used to, wake up at 3 a.m. and, go, woe is me, and somebody'd have to call me a wambulance. And I don't do that anymore. I've kind of come to terms with the fact that I did make some mistakes. But as an old saying goes, only a fool trips over the rocks laid behind him, which means you can't change the past. So shut your mouth and just get on with it.
It's funny because we had a podcast for a while. Actually, that kind of spawned into this one, but it was originally called Entrepreneurship, Failure to Launch an Entrepreneur's Roadmap to Success. And most people that have made it in life, such as yourself, had many of what people like to see as failures along the way to get to where you are. But you can choose to look at those as failures, or you can have those steps behind you and try to keep elevating up. So yeah, I guess it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it's insane. I don't want to dwell on the drug thing forever, but
are you a morning guy?
Huh?
Are you a morning guy?
Morning
guy. Like, are you?
Oh yeah, I'm up at 7 o'clock every morning.
Yeah, and not to dwell on the drugs, but that was my biggest problem with I'm a morning guy, and there's a difference between a sunrise when you haven't slept the night before versus the sunrise when you got a good night's sleep. I don't like both of those sunrises. I only like one of them.
Yeah, I always wanted to shoot that first bird.
Close all the curtains. I can't stand the noise.
You've been up all night, and then the bird starts tweeting, and it's like, no, I don't want that noise.
Yeah.
That means bad things just happen.
Yeah, that's when you that's when you start missing gigs.
Yes.
So let's talk about, you're here today over doing some stuff with the Rock School Northwest. You're going to
Yep.
be playing with you're going to be playing with the band, the
Right.
Royals,
The Royals. Yeah.
which I don't know if you've heard them yet.
I've heard that they're fantastic.
They're really, really good.
Yeah.
I got to hear them a couple of times. We do some drone footage of them, and honestly, you know, coming here to the Rock School and hearing them play at the Rock School, I was assuming it was going to be like some kid band that just kind of gets together. These guys could perform anywhere. They just got to get the opportunity.
Yeah.
And you're going to play with them today.
I'm
How
gonna play with
fucking
them.
cool is that? You asked if you could drop the F-bomb, so
Okay.
fly.
There you go. I'll put those away in my back pocket for future use in this interview. Yeah, I talked with the guys. I am going to explain to them that I am not a Neil Sean, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, et cetera kind of guy. I'm more of a David Gilmour player, where I was not gifted with a great deal of speed, so I had to rely on taste. That has served me extremely well, because when I get into a studio situation, I'm very, very good at coming up with guitar hooks.
Mm.
You know, I'll come up with a hook that serves the song, rather than, you know, screaming at the listener, you know, hey, listen to that guitar. It's just there, and it's like, oh, that's a part of the tune. And once you've accomplished that, you have made a name for yourself. And that's why I became kind of a go-to guitar player in San Francisco for several years.
Yeah, you've played with some amazing, it's not just one amazing band, you've played with some amazing groups. So you've got to kind of taste the merry-go-round a little bit.
Oh, big time. And do you mind if I kind of start from the beginning?
I would actually love to hear how you got into music when you started, if that's where
Sure.
where you want to go.
No, absolutely. And I think it's important.
Yep.
Because context is everything. So when I was around 13 or 14, I was a nerd. I mean, I was a real nerdy kid. I collected old vintage movie posters.
Get a smile up there.
And I liked horror movies. I collected old monster magazines. And that wasn't cool, man. Back then, being a nerd was a no-no. Girls didn't like guys who
they didn't like guys that played D&D and
yeah, hey, look at this movie poster I got from House on Haunted Hill. Yeah, oh, that's great. Next. So my dad took me aside. He said, son, I know that sports aren't your thing. I know that you're smart in school, but I think you need a hobby. So I tell you what, why don't you pick up a musical instrument? I'll pay for the first 6 months of lessons on any instrument you choose. So
Right.
I went through the whole agonizing thing where
you're good.
Oh, I'm good. Okay.
Yep.
Watching hand signals, folks. So I thought about it. Saxophone seemed really cool, but it was too hard to play. I mean, I just didn't want to go through that whole thing of trying to get a tone. And I've heard people trying to learn, and it sounds like bull farts. It's pretty ugly.
Bull farts?
Bull farts on a muggy day. So I was listening to the radio, and a song called Miserlou came on by Dick Dale. And if any of you people out there have seen the movie Pulp Fiction,
oh yeah,
that's the theme to Pulp Fiction. That
okay.
was Dick Dale. Astonishing guitar work on that thing. And that's why I had the epiphany. I said, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And I'm still waiting to grow up, by the way, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make my guitar sound like that. It sounded like a guy running over the goal line, making a touchdown.
Mm.
It was the musical equivalent. I certainly was not going to do that in real life because, I was small, and I have the coordination of someone who's just been tasered. So it's not pretty watching me on a field of play. So
Unless you put a guitar in your hand on that field.
Yeah, that guitar in my hand felt good. I was not a prodigy. My teacher was a bitter old jazz player, and he looked like sort of the trailer trash cousin of James Dean. You know, just he tried to look at James Dean, but he
He's
looked
the
more,
he's the Walmart version of James Dean.
yeah, he looked like, you know, his middle name was James Goober Dean.
Hey.
Not a happy guy. He recognized I had some talent, but I had to fight for every note I got, man. It wasn't easy. I mean, I've seen kids come in and just go for it right from the first lesson. I was not one of them, but I wanted so badly to do it that I finally got to a point where I was able to play with some local bands. You know, they said, "I hear you play guitar, and you know we can't find anybody else, so you'll have to do." So I started playing with older guys. The word got around to some other people. I got with a bunch of guys at a different high school. The band was called the Virtues. This is back in the Beatle days.
Okay.
Okay, so we all wore matching suits. We had gold lame suits with black velvet collars and Beatle hairdos, which got us in huge trouble at high school. So the second epiphany I had is when we did a battle of the bands, and we finally got taken out of competition because the band was good, and
The band you were playing against was good.
or the band I was in was good.
Okay.
And they finally said, "Well, you've won every contest, so you're just going to be a special guest." So we went to a high school gymnasium, and we were behind the curtains. And this is right after the Beatles came out. The curtains opened, and about 500 girls started screaming. And it was like, oh, I could get used to this. You know, I couldn't get a woman to look at me. You know, if she was drowning and needed somebody to save her, she'd probably wait for the next guy. So that was cool. That was really a cool moment. So then next epiphany was I went to the Fillmore Auditorium, which is, for those of you who are a little younger, the Fillmore was like the place to play back in the 60s. That's where basically modern music was born. I saw Jimi Hendrix there before he was Jimi Hendrix.
And where was this at?
The Fillmore Auditorium in San Francisco.
Okay.
And I saw a group called the Yardbirds. At the time, they had two guitar players. One was Jeff Beck, and the other was Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page was playing rhythm. So that gives you an idea of how good Jeff Beck was. That's when I saw guitar playing at a level that I never even imagined. And I was going to UC Berkeley at the time, and I was going to be a psychologist.
Oh my goodness. You were going to be a psychologist.
I was going to be a psychologist.
You probably could have been your own best patient.
I could have been. I picked the perfect alternate occupation because I deal with crazy people on a daily basis.
So you're still like a psychologist.
Oh yeah. I underpaid, but a psychologist. So anyway, I saw Jeff Beck play, and that was it. And you know, to the day he died, he never ceased to amaze me. One thing led to another. The Virtues started smoking pot. We became a band called Country Weather that did very well in the Bay Area. We opened up for Sly and the Family Stone, a band called 10 Years After that had all the hot shit guitar player, the hot shit guitar player of the moment, a guy named Alvin Lee.
And the name of the band, were you guys playing country music, or did it just have the? Okay.
It was one of those pot moments. You know?
Oh, you had a high moment.
Dude, wait, we're in the country. And
you know, Craig, I take offense to this because half my good ideas came while during smoking marijuana.
Oh, I don't take offense. I get it. We'll get to Jungle Love and how that was born in a second. But yeah, I just, as you know, it's country, and look, man, weather. So that became the name of the band.
Beautiful.
That band had a wonderful run for about 5 years. We actually had one tune that ended up on a couple of compilations of 60s music by, fairly unknown bands.
And you guys were a paid band at this point, or did you have a record deal yet, or were you just kind of getting paid to go do private gigs?
We did gigs. That's how we lived. We made a couple of demos. Nothing came of it. We really didn't have a hit single. That's what they wanted to hear back then.
Okay.
So just it wasn't happening at all. But it got to a point where I recorded a song with a folk singer, and there was a guy named Nicky Hopkins who was producing it. And I hope I'm not getting into too much detail here.
No, go ahead.
Nicky Hopkins played on everybody's records. He played on the Rolling Stones, Sympathy for the Devil, all that wonderful piano work. That was Nicky Hopkins. Nicky was the producer. That led to some more sessions, and somehow I ended up working with Van Morrison.
Wow.
Got a call from his backup band, who were buddies of mine at that point, and they said their guitar player was not doing it. Just Van wasn't happy. So I came in, and
What was that call like?
It was
like, what went through your mind? Because that's a big name. Even at that time, that was a big name, right?
he was huge. Yeah. I mean, he was just really hitting his stride. I had heard horrible things about the guy. I heard that he was really hard to deal with, and cranky and mercurial. You know, you couldn't tell what was going to happen.
That's got to be like the equivalent to like a young actor getting a call from like, hey, Martin Scorsese wants you to be in a film. I mean, that's
yeah. And the hell of it is, I was an hour late for my audition.
Oh, okay.
And I forget what happened. I think it was an automotive problem. Van wasn't happy, but he saw me play, and we actually got along very well as people. I mean, go figure. The band couldn't figure it out. The road manager couldn't figure it out.
Couldn't figure out why you guys had chemistry?
Yeah. And it was just, in retrospect, once again, Van invited me over to his house a few times to just hang, and he wanted guitar lessons. And I told him, I said, all I'm going to do is confuse you. You're doing so good with the 7 chord, you know.
Right.
So if I had more self-confidence, I would have gone for it, but I was really intimidated just by the fact it was Van Morrison. So
yeah, that's a big, like, asking to be taught or to receive, giving lessons to somebody that is already on such a you know, spectacle.
I mean, this is a guy who wrote he wrote Gloria, he wrote Brown Eyed Girl. He wrote the song, I Want to Rock Your Gypsy Soul, one of the great lines in any song ever. But eventually he let the band go. I never officially got fired. He just
kind of disassembled.
Yeah, it was. How
long did you play with them for?
Only about a year.
Okay. But
it was an action-packed year. Very, very interesting.
Well, that's a year that will be ingrained into your life till the end of the days.
Yeah, and the great thing is Van would come in and sit in with my little bands at nightclubs.
That's
get
cool.
a Van Morrison walk on stage, and people would be going, "What?"
It's like the equivalent to like a major social media push now these days.
Oh yeah, now it'd be a huge thing. So after that, I had a power trio called Mistress that made an album. Once again, and we didn't get signed, but my name came to the attention of a band called Hot Tuna. And there were 2 guys from the Jefferson Airplane who founded that band. Jorma Kaukonen was their guitarist. And, oh golly, I should know the name of the bass player. Anyway, so yeah, there was... I was with them for about a year. That didn't work out for a lot of reasons, and it ended very, very badly. I mean, where I was let go in a manner that was pretty nasty, and it took me a couple of months to get over it.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you able to talk about it, or is it?
Well, I can't, because there's some language in there that would be offensive to the audience. And Jack Cassidy. Anyway, when they fired me, and I did my share, by the way, because I was starting to drink a lot and to do a lot of diet pills. And
Diet pills like fen.
well, no, this is my dad worked for Upjohn Pharmaceuticals. I found out I had a garage full of amphetamines. So thanks, Dad. So when they let me go, I got a phone call from Yorma, and actually I called Yorma and I said, look, let's finish this thing. And he said, I can't talk to you. And he hung up the phone. Jack Cassidy, the bass player, called and he said, well, I'm afraid I have some brutal news for you. And I said, yeah, Jack, let's get it done. I said, why are you firing me? I need to tell the unemployment office why you're firing me. And he replied, he said, well, you play guitar like an N-word who's taken too much speed.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
So I said, I'll be sure to share that with the unemployment office, Jack. Thank you. So
what a hurtful thing to hear. What a hurtful thing to say.
Oh yeah. God. Well, and it's Jack may deny it. I don't think he's ever going to hear this, but yeah, it was a crappy thing for him to say. Not that I didn't deserve to be fired because of certain aspects of my behavior, but I didn't deserve to be fired in that manner.
Tells a lot about somebody's character when they even use that type of a description.
Yeah. So rather than fold up shop, I moved on. I started working with, there was a band called the Quicksilver Messenger Service, one of the big San Francisco bands. I became friends with their guitarist. We did some work together. And one of the people working with one of the bands was Steve Miller's bass player, a guy named Lonnie Turner. And we were fooling around at rehearsal one day, and I had a guitar part that I knew was going to be something significant. He had some crazy words that had been sitting around. He was working with Dave Mason, and he presented the words to Dave Mason, and Dave said, oof, boy, it's just too weird for me. So we put it all together. It became a song called Jungle Love.
We all know that song.
Yeah. And Steve heard it, and he went crazy. He said, where's this guy? We got to get him down here right now to do this song because we got to wrap up the Book of Dreams album. We've been looking for a rocker. This is the rocker. They called me. I got a call home, and I was sitting and doing something important, like watching soap operas. And Steve got on the phone and said, hi, this is Steve Miller. And I said, oh, really? He said, no, this is Steve Miller. He said, I just heard your guitar part on Jungle Love. I can't play it. It took the top of my head off. Where are you? I said, well, I'm in Sausalito. He says, funny, so are we. Can you get down here? I said, I'll turn off the soap opera. And so I got down there in about 10 minutes, took my stuff out of the car, got set up. We did 2.5 takes of the song, took a half an hour, and we were done.
Wow.
And here
that was your first time meeting him in person?
Yeah.
At that moment, wow, how insane.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind there? It just sounds like almost like, is this real?
That's exactly what it was. It was honestly, it was just too bizarre for me to even be nervous.
That's what I mean. It's like you don't even have time to like be googly eyed. You're just like, what the fuck? Am I really here right now? This is happening. You're just kind of going.
It went so well and so quickly and so smoothly that, I wasn't aware that wasn't the way things happened with him. I mean, I'd done a lot of studio work at that point. I'd been on a bunch of other people's albums, but, to get something in 2.5 takes was unheard of. So he realized that he was going to have to hire me to be in the band because the song was going to be a single. He had no idea of what I was doing. So I got called to do a video. This is before there were MTV type videos. What they would used to do is make music videos. And back in the day, people would put cartoons before a movie.
I remember that.
Remember that? Okay.
Not personally, but watching. My father was much older. He was 67 when I was born.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he used to kind of show me what their days were like. Yeah, my dad could have been your father. That's how old he was.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, my grandpa was born in the 1800s. So just boom.
Got longevity in your genes, my friend.
Yeah. Hey, cheers.
So
We're like
Um,
brothers.
um, I came to the audition, and we did Jungle Love, and I started putting my guitar away. And I have this big sound crew. Yeah, they flew me to LA, by the way, to do the auditions, and a big sound stage. We did Jungle Love. I started packing my guitar up, and Steve said, "No, no, no, no. You're going to play on Rockin' Me, Baby," which was number one at that point. I said, "I've never played the song." He said, "It's 3 chords. It's not exactly brain surgery." So he showed me a part to play. I played the part. Went over, started putting my guitar away. And he said, "Oh, I want you on one more song. It's a new one called Jet Airliner." I said, "Steve, I haven't even heard that song." And he said, "Figure it out." I said, "I figure it out. I've got about 6 cameras rolling and about 20 people all staring at me." I got a little nervous on that one, but I just went for it. That was the song I just went for. And actually, there's a tape of it exists someplace. You can't really hear my solo on the way out, but I was just ripping, killing it.
Was there being video shot?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a video somewhere of this?
Apparently. Yeah, I actually saw it, but they cut before I really got cooking on the solo. So for whatever reason. But yeah, those videos were shown over in Europe and Japan.
Wow.
That got things going for the next 4 years. I toured with the band, and it was top of the food chain. We were playing on bills with the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac. I got to hang with Joe Walsh. And in fact, we got very drunk one night. But
is this what put you on the map?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's still. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that half hour I spent in the studio.
Wow. Do you still think about that? Do you ever lay in bed at night and go, man, that 30-minute segment of my life pretty much dominoed everything else to where I am right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I used to be of the kind of that state of mind where, oh, it's so tragic that one thing put me on the bullshit. It is not tragic when you get a break like that.
Right.
And it has pretty much defined me for better or for worse. And I realize it's for better, period.
I mean, you're here today because of it in essence, right?
And the other thing is it gives you credibility.
Right.
The minute you have a record that, I mean, pretty much everybody of a certain age has heard the song.
I mean, I've heard of it. I know Tyler's in music, but Tyler,
it was part of your assignment.
Tyler's 16 years old, and he's into this. He was so excited that you were coming.
Oh, good.
And this whole the whole campus over here, Mode Campus, has been talking about it for the last couple of weeks.
Oh, that's it. It's just great, man. Matter of fact, the night before I came here, I was laying in bed at 3 a.m. thinking, what am I going to do? what am I going to talk about? But I just, my wife said, just blab like you always do.
And that's the thing with interviews, and even you coming onto this podcast, this was not part of the original deal. And I said, look, if this guy's coming here, and you guys want me to help you do other things, he's got to come on my podcast as well. So
I'm glad.
So I reeled you over. So you were at this time with the whole Steve Miller Band and some of that. Were you married, or was there any kids or anything in your life at this point that you know of?
I was married, but that didn't slow me down from finding a certain female companionship on the road. It's not something I'm not proud of. On the other hand, I'm happy that it happened because I had a lot of pleasant experiences with women. I never got the feeling that they were being used. If anything, they had something to talk about in math class on Monday. I slept with the guy from blah blah blah, and it was part of the deal. And it was, that part of it was really fun.
I imagine that's pretty much the protocol for traveling, especially high-end traveling musicians to this day. That's probably in the DNA.
Sure. I mean, I've learned. It took me a long time, but I've learned
Oh, and I wasn't alluding to you now. I'm talking about like in the.
Oh yeah, back in the day, I know absolutely. It was. Matter of fact, I had a long-term girlfriend. He said, "Well, how many women do you think you've slept with?" I said, "I've never really thought of it." And,
Probably a number you don't want to hear.
yeah. So I sat down and I said, do you really want to know? And she said, "Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm writing and writing and writing, and I got up, just above 300, and I I said the stupidest thing. I says, "Does oral count?" And that was it. She went through the roof. She took the piece of paper, tore it into 1,000 tiny pieces. Yeah. So yeah,
Be careful what you ask for, kind
yeah,
of a thing, right?
exactly. So anyway, yeah, somewhere around 300.
Okay.
Which is, it's not the kiss numbers, but it's been interesting.
Right.
I have remained friends with a lot of these people too.
And you're married now.
Oh yeah,
How long have you been married?
30 years.
30 years.
Yeah.
Kids?
I have a son from my first marriage. He is in his 40s. He's about to, he and his wife are about to gift me with my first grandson.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Are you close to the family?
We are. We have some differences politically,
Right.
but that's okay. He's my son.
Politics always get in the way of things.
It's
Especially more so now than ever.
It's a wretched state of mind, and it's very sad. But blood is the most important thing. Family and friendships are golden. And I've put a lot of strain on both of them, but I've managed to come out on the other side, I think, a better person.
Oh, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. At least that's what I hear.
It's a cliche, but it's true.
Right. A lot of cliches, right? But if you really look into them and you practice the work behind the cliche, there usually is some level of truth to it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just, it's a miracle that I'm sitting here today.
And so being here today, do you do a lot of these types of guest playing events where you get called out and people want to kind of use you to showcase high level talent?
It's happened. It's not a regular thing. It's something I really like doing.
I was going to ask you that. You seem like you enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I do.
Because I just got to meet you for the first time right before we did this, as I opened the doors, and I was like, is this guy going to be a dick? Is he going to be like, where's my coffee? Or is he going to be kind of down to earth? And you were like, hey, Dan, you're just very, very calm and chill. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, man. I am so unimpressed with myself as a star. It's just, I'm tickled that people view me that way. And it's just, I know they're going to find the truth out within 15 minutes. So,
well, but isn't that funny? Like, do you find yourself, so when you were in the heyday of like Steve Miller Band and some of these big names you played with, when those kind of fizzled out and you continued your journey, was there ever any really like down moments where you're like, oh, I'm never going to get this back. It's never going to be the way it was again. How did you come to peace with continuing on doing what you're doing?
I'll tell you what happened. After Steve Miller, I went out with believe it or not, a band that was half reggae and half bluegrass. He called it Reggabilly. So we toured Europe, and then I got a call from a group called the Greg Kihn Band, which was very, very big in the Bay Area. Actually, I got a call from Boston right before that. And they said, they've heard you play guitar, but you need to sing. And I'm not a good singer. So that was out the door. But anyway, Greg Kihn called that band. And I had developed a fondness for heroin about the time that I started with Steve Miller. And the timing couldn't have been worse. I was making big money and I liked heroin. And I liked it so much that I became addicted right out of the gate. So it became a roller coaster ride. I'd get strung out. I'd go on the road and clean up. I'd get strung out. I'd go on the road. I'm not one of those guys who's real good about copping drugs on the road. I just, some people have that dubious talent. I'm not one of them. It started to become a real problem
because you didn't have it while you were on the road.
I didn't have it, and when I did have it, my performance was substandard. shall we say.
Yeah, I imagine it'd be interesting to watch somebody try to do anything at a high level while on heroin. Doesn't
Or off heroin.
or off heroin.
Yeah.
Going through withdrawals is probably equally as bad, huh?
Oh yeah, I'd get up in front of 15,000 people and be in the throes of major dope sickness.
Mm.
And I look at the videos now, and I actually look pretty good, all things considered. I sure didn't feel good, but with these guys,
And they were aware. The band members knew.
yeah, they were aware.
It's probably obvious, right?
Yeah, and the thing was, everybody was doing drugs in that band except the drummer, and they were doing cocaine. A couple of us were doing heroin. Everybody drank. It was on the rider that I get a fifth of Canadian Club every month. Every month, every gig, every month. That would have been fine. But eventually, I played on their second big hit. They had two big hit singles. I played on the second one. I came up with a really high quality guitar part, and that helped sell the single. So we went on the road. I mean, we were on the road, 150 days a year. So we were out there.
Yeah, it's half the year.
Yeah, huh?
That's half the year, just about.
It's half the year. And I tell you, it was the whole, women, drugs. And they put me in as an equal member of the band immediately, which is unheard of. It was very, very generous of them. But I was always out of money because I was spending all on drugs. And
probably women too. Well, not drugs and women. They cost a lot.
Drugs and women. Yeah, that's true. So I got fired, and that's when I went into a real tailspin because.
When was this? Like what year?
This was in the mid 1980s.
Okay.
So I was fired from that band, and that was bad because word got out just as my career had a wonderful ascension, the descension was very quick.
Oof, what a roller coaster.
And very, very, I was effectively persona non grata. So, and once again, rightfully so. I look back on it, and back then, how could they do this to me? Well, I would do it.
Right.
I wouldn't fire somebody.
Business is business.
Yeah. So I went into a tailspin. First wife divorced me. I had a second wife who was my midlife crisis wife. I was met her when she was modeling lingerie in a sleazy bar. So gives you an idea.
Yeah, that one had a real good opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We had so much in common.
You both like the same lingerie, apparently.
Yeah. Oops. So I actually got a job at AT&T.
Okay.
And doing sales, and I did very, very well there. Was one of their top salespeople. Once again, drugs got in the way, and I was fired from that. I ended up moving to San Diego because there was nothing left for me in the Bay Area. Moved to San Diego. And there was some guy who wanted to be my manager, nothing about the music business. Just he tried, but he just wasn't cut out for it. But it did get me into San Diego, and gradually I started to build another set of musical relationships because when I am sober, I'm dependable as far as coming up with good ideas.
Right.
And that makes me a valuable member of the team.
Pretty sure that makes you a valuable member of society.
Well, that too, yes. So I got picked up by a corporate band. I'd never done that. I mean, these guys were matching suits. They took us all over the world. Took us to Tahiti, Thailand. I mean, I was teaching guitar. I was traveling with these guys. I was doing other gigs. I was making royalties. I was making over $100,000 a year for about 10 years in a row.
In the 80s and 90s, that's good money.
Well, this was in the 90s to the early 2000s.
Okay.
And of course, 2008 came around, and bye-bye corporate gigs because everybody lost money in 2008. Once again, drugs got in the way. and they had to let me go. So I started realizing that there was a certain pattern to my life that wasn't serving me very well.
There's a common denominator here, huh?
Yeah. So I went down to Mexico for a very dramatic drug treatment that involved something called ibogaine. And ibogaine is an African, it comes from the bark of a tree in Gabon, which is a small African nation. And they eat the bark of the tree and it gives them visions.
Is it similar to ayahuasca?
Very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a tryptamine.
I'm very familiar with ayahuasca. This,
Yeah,
this
okay.
sounds.
Yeah. It wasn't like LSD at all.
Right.
I felt, okay, first of all, full disclosure, I'm not a religious guy at all.
Right.
I'm just not.
But spiritual, maybe.
Yeah, I am spiritual. And I had these visions where I saw my place in the universe. I saw that I had been walking in darkness for years.
Mm.
And it was my time to walk in the light. I saw civilizations being born. I saw universes being born with these huge explosions of energy. And it was the most powerful experience I've ever had in my life. And it really changed me. So
This sounds like a ketamine trip.
It was just, wow. My wife saw all the changes in me and she went out and did it.
Really?
Yeah. And
your wife now?
My wife now, yeah.
Okay.
So that lasted for 5 years. I started going through a very stressful time. We had just sold our house, or trying to sell our house. So I was paying 2 mortgages, and the stress caused me to have a relapse. And then I discovered something called smart recovery. I tried the 12-step thing. It just didn't work for me, because I think in order for the 12-step modality to work, you have to have a very strong spiritual base. You have to believe that there is a higher power that will lift the obsession to use.
Because it is religious based. I've heard of smart recovery. And what does SMART stand for?
Self-management and recovery training.
Yes.
So I trained to be a facilitator because I wanted to be deeply involved with this.
Great question for you here, because I have some similar modalities that you went through. Did you find when you dove into it, not just for your own recovery, but when you decided to help others with it, came with a different level of accountability because now people are relying on you?
Bingo. That's exactly it. It changed the whole ball game. I mean, all of a sudden I had to be there once a week. I had to suit up and be there for people. I had to learn to listen. That is the most important part about being a facilitator, is keeping your mouth shut, listen, occasionally come in and keep the train rolling on time.
It's like sales.
Yeah. And so everything in my life, good and bad, led me to that. And that's why I've become a better teacher. I'm a much better husband. I'm good working with people in recovery, because I have experienced things that are probably way worse than they'll ever dream of. And I tell people that. I mean, people who come for the first time, I said, if you're worried about freaking people out, forget about it. You know, nobody is here because they're having a great time.
Right.
And they all have horror stories. So out with it if you feel comfortable.
What a great opportunity to be a role model in a situation like that, because your story is so out there. People can read about it, and seeing you be able to pull out of the darkness must give a lot of hope too. Do you deal with a lot of younger individuals?
Yes, I get it. It's everything, everybody. I mean, I get them. There was a 15-year-old kid who showed up the other night,
and this is in your hometown?
Yeah, I do it on Zoom.
Okay.
It's a Zoom. So I've had people from Australia. I've had people from, oh God, I can't even remember the name of it. Turkey, Bangkok.
Wow.
Britain, all over the world, mostly from San Diego. And I started a second meeting in Coos Bay, which has been sparsely attended, but a lot of people in crisis. And all I really have to do is sit there and listen. because I realized there's no place else they can talk about this stuff.
Right.
I can't go to my sober friends and say, boy, I'm really having trouble. I'm really having urges to use it. Well, why would you do that? You really screwed everything up last time.
Greg, do you find sharing your story that when you do talk about it, because it's such a taboo subject in general, that people end up relating to it directly, or they're like, oh, I got somebody going through this as well. Like, it's more common than people think to be going through these type of addictions and struggles and mental health.
Yeah. And that's why I think the program, or any program, I mean, if the 12-step program works for you, by all means,
right,
that's what you should do. And I do not judge it. It just didn't work for me.
There's a bunch of different roadmaps to get you to the same place.
Exactly.
Right.
And I like, I just happen to like SMART, because if you do have a relapse, you don't have the thing where you have to go back to being a newcomer. This okay. Let's figure out why this happened. Let's talk about it as a group.
Get back on the bicycle.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. So
I went through the federal prison system personally and had a similar experience in prison.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough way to.
Still not as tough as what I hear you talking about. So prison was actually federal prison was kind of a cakewalk, but hearing some of this stuff. So I'm assuming you're completely clean, sober today.
Yeah.
I mean, not today, but in general.
In general, yeah. When I was in the UK last year, I had a couple of drinks, and it was like, this, it's not fun. I mean, not to the point where I got like, I just didn't feel it.
Right.
And why why pull the handle on the slot machine if there's no payoff? So you're just destroying your liver for no reason. And, plus it just.
How many friends did you watch pass away due to drugs and alcohol?
Too many to even, we'd go on and on. This thing would be 4 hours long.
And yet you're still here.
I'm still here, which is really amazing. There's been a couple of times where I wasn't here and they brought me back. So, and my wife, instead of being angry with me, said, you're being kept around for a purpose.
Yeah.
That's all.
Greater reason, whatever it is, whatever higher power there is, there's some reason you're here. Well, to wrap up, so today, 2024, what does your day look like, your day-to-day now? I know you said you teach.
Yep.
And what are some of your hobbies? What are some things people don't know about you?
Well, first of all, I'm very, very happy teaching right now. I moved to Coos Bay in July of 2023. And I said, what am I going to do with myself? I don't want to retire. So I went to the music store to buy a capo, and the guy heard me playing and he said, would you like a job? I said, sure. Doing what? I'll sweep the sidewalk, whatever. He said, we need a teacher. Our teacher is not working out. And after meeting the guy, I realized why he was kind of a dick. I hope you're not listening.
And if you are, stop being a dick.
Yeah, really, please. Dicks Anonymous. There's a great 12-step program. So I settled right into teaching, and given all I've been through, I realized that it was a privilege, and I was very, very good at doing it. And I give my students every ounce of whatever they need. If they want a song, I'll go home and I'll tab that sucker out, and I'll give it to them note for note. And
how cool that they get to learn from like Greg Douglas.
Well, the name thing really, really helps. And I said, there's a lot of guitar players who are much better than me, but obviously I have some sort of skill that's kept me in the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's the ability to play something that's appropriate to what's going on around me. So, hobbies. I collect old horror movie posters, or actually old movie posters. Started doing it when I was 14, and posters were like 75 cents a piece. Are we getting the wrap-up sign here?
Yeah, getting the wrap-up sign.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I spend way too much money on movie posters now instead of drugs. So that's, and I really enjoy it. As a matter of fact, while I was here, I just won a poster from How to Make a Monster for $500. So
really, very cool.
Which is, I think, close to what I'm getting paid. So that zeroes out.
Well, hey, but you get to do what you've loved to do pretty much your entire life, and Maybe you're not making the same money you're making then, but here you are still talking about rock and roll.
I'm doing great, man. I mean, I can't complain financially.
Well, Greg Douglas, we're going to be seeing you a little bit later as you're playing with the Royals and doing a master class. And we're getting the wrap up sign here. But
Beautiful.
I want to thank you very much, my man. It was definitely a pleasure interview. Thank you, buddy.
Okay.
Guys, I'm Dan Wise, Wise Media Studios here at the Mode facility. We're going to be checking in with Greg Douglas and the Royals a little bit later. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back with Greg. Peace, everybody.